If your world was plagued by terrifying devils, what would you do? You'll be forced to fight an army of monsters in order to get to the most powerful devil of all. And by the way, not even your teammates will be able to save you. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Katana Devil in Chainsawman Part 2. This human-turned-devil is going to watch all of his teammates get slaughtered by terrifying creatures. In a world where all human fears have come to life as devils, Denji here has been forced by the government to join this devil-hunting crew to track down and kill the most powerful monster in the world, the Gun Devil. A terrifying supervillain that has the power to kill millions and will soon destroy the entire world. But all Denji cares about is scoring with a pretty girl, understandable. This girl in particular, and he is determined to come out of this job alive just to get a date with her. Going through hell to find the Gun Devil, Denji's team has just fallen into a trap set by one of its followers, this creature, the Eternity Devil. It has swallowed a piece of the Gun Devil's flesh, and his powers have now been enhanced. Aki mentions that they need to collect the Gun Devil's flesh from inside this devil's stomach. This is their mission. Realizing that they are now trapped within a pocket dimension and all out of options, Denji out of nowhere uses his devil powers and turns into Chainsawman, and he jumps down into the black hole of this creature's stomach, and he tries to slaughter this devil up into a million pieces, but realizes it's too powerful, and he realizes that he's losing too much blood. The blood loss causing him to turn quickly back into his human form, and his chainsaw parts start to disappear. The Eternity Devil then gets ready to eat Denji's valuable heart, but this kid realizes something insane and makes the connection. There's blood all around him, so he cuts, slices, and stabs the Eternity Devil again and again and begins to feed on its blood, fueling Denji and making his chainsaw powers and mind go absolutely crazy, turning full psycho, and he begins to savagely kill this devil in a way that no one has ever seen before. Himeno here watches in horror and thinks he might just be crazy enough to soon be able to beat the Gun Devil. What doesn't make sense is how not prepared this group was for their mission, and the reason I bring that up is because of what they carry to each job. It's always the same: armored suits, select weaponry, contract with various devils, and despite their mission each time being so different, but even if they didn't know what devil they were going to face this time around, there were ways that they could have been better prepared regardless, at least if I was in charge. It's noted that we've been trapped within this pocket dimension for days, but if we came into each devil hunting job expecting the absolute worst, wouldn't it have been a good idea from the start that we bring along with us an assault pack or a military backpack that could have easily kept us equipped with all sorts of combat essentials? Assault packs are intended primarily for shorter 1 to 3 day missions and can hold around 20 liters because, let's face it, we're basically glorified cops. And on top of that, we're not up against any regular bad guys, not human beings. Oh no. We're going up against superpowered demons. Because of this, it's insane that we're dressed in suits, yet we don't carry any essentials with us or reserve packs on duty. The gang manages to finally escape and collect another piece of the Gun Devil's flesh, resembling a bullet. Aki says that once they collect enough bullets, these things will begin to vibrate and direct them to the location of the Gun Devil. Later, they decide to celebrate their small victory at a bar. How original. And they discuss that more devils have started dying on the job, and this freaks some of the rookies out, not realizing that only some of them will make it through this week alive. Next to them, Himeno tells Denji that she owes him a kiss for taking out the Eternity Devil earlier, and he gets really excited, and group leader Makima finally shows up. And the other guy who likes his boss Aki tells Makima that there are more devils with gun pieces inside of them, and they've started to show up more frequently. Reminds them that earlier, the Eternity Devil wanted Denji's heart too, and isn't that strange? And so he asks Makima if she knows anything about this, and Makima looks him dead in the face and says that she'll tell him if they can outdrink her. So the entire group faces off against her, but lose massively because Makima drinks alcohol like a fish, and in doing this she manages to keep all her cards to herself. But Himeno has had enough of all of this and plants a big one right on Denji's mouthpiece. And he gets really happy right as she unloads some very warm romantic vomit right into his mouth. It's gross. But later though, he wakes up in her apartment and she tries to get a little freaky, and suddenly he becomes all moral and chaste and says that he wants to save himself for Makima. And he tells her that the kiss earlier was a mistake. The next day, Denji confesses his love for Makima to Himeno and and says how he wants to be with her. And since Himeno is a good friend, she makes a deal with Denji. She'll help him out with Makima if he helps her get the guy that she really wants, Aki. And now the two partners in their romantic crime plan their next move, not realizing that soon most of them will all be assassinated. Okay, we need to talk about the craziness of this situation, because how is the world on the verge of being destroyed by a terrifying devil, and somehow these two are talking about romantic cutesy stuff, which I'm actually super into because we love love, and while helping our team out with their romance problems might seem silly, this could in fact help us win the war against the devils. Hear me out. Being in love not only helps lower your stress levels and better mental acuity, oxytocin can physically increase your tolerance for physical pain and can build and regenerate muscles at faster speeds, which means that dating each other as teammates will make us happier, smarter, cause drama, and tear us all apart. Maybe that's not a good idea then. Later, Makima and her assistant head to Kyoto for a meeting, not noticing the passengers behind them suddenly disappear from view. Makima's assistant asks her if she knows why so many devils have started to appear with pieces of the gun devil's flesh inside of them, but she says that she can't share that information with the low-level betas. Ouch. Out of nowhere, 4 men surround them and blow their heads off and instantly kill him. The killers radio in their team to begin the operation, and one by one all the devil hunters across Japan begin to get slaughtered one by one. Nearby, faint sounds of gunfire rip through the streets, alerting Denji's gang that there is something going on. Of course, what does Power think? She thinks it's fireworks, and none of them know that they are about to be in big trouble in a matter of seconds. Continuing to eat in this restaurant, this stranger near them suddenly makes a rude comment about the taste of the ramen and calls Denji's crew uncivilized for enjoying this restaurant, which Aki thinks it's rather strange. They watch him take out a photo of his grandfather and reveals to Denji that he murdered his grandfather, and Denji is slow to realize this, and this killer aggressively pulls out his gun and points it right at his face. Aki and Power react fast and quickly manage to subdue him, pushing him out of the way, and Aki summons his contract devil Kon to feast on his flesh, blowing up the entire building. The destruction causes Himeno to be critically injured, and Power tends to her, and Aki notices Denji hasn't healed yet, but it gets worse. Kon alerts Aki that he's just put something horrible in his mouth, something that is not human and not devil, and realizes that it's just made a terrifying mistake. And just then, its entire face gets sliced open by the stranger, who's now transformed into something far worse. Katana Man. Fueled up on pure adrenaline, Aki takes out his devil sword and tries to attack this unknown creature, and manages to get some good shots in. Switching up tactics, he then uses his sword to activate his second and final contract devil, the Cursed Devil. It terrifyingly picks up Katana Man and kills him on the spot. And Aki takes a breather and checks in on his teammates, but realizes that Himeno is bleeding out and will die unless he does something. And just then a mysterious blonde girl shows up near him, and she just casually walks over and revives Katana Man, and Aki looks on in total disbelief, and she gives this monster shit for dying, telling him to kill them all. And so Katana Devil bends over and supercharges himself up while Aki gets ready for another round, but it's too late. Aki suddenly notices Katana Man right behind him and realizes what's just happened. He's been stabbed and he coughs up blood. Blonde girl tells Katana Man that Aki's devil hunter suit protected him and orders this monster to finish the job. Himeno knows that she's about to see her crush, her boo-boo, die, and orders Power here to do something. Says that she can't even see Katana Man's moves, and she begs her own contracted devil, this ghost hand, to attack. But the devil says that the blonde girl scares her. Desperate and now out of time, Himeno offers her contract devil a new contract and sells her entire soul in exchange in order to be able to use this devil's full powers right here, right now, and it accepts. Flowing through Himeno, she uses its powers from hell and manifests into this terrifying demon and brings it into existence. Katana Man changes his attention and tries to fight back, but quickly gets overpowered, and Aki notices Himeno slowly dying off, losing parts of her body one at a time. About to kill Katana Man, everyone thinks they've saved the day, and out of nowhere, blonde girl suddenly calls up her own devil contract, the Snake Devil, and it swallows Himeno's devil right in front of everyone's eyes, and Himeno's body and soul disappears off of the face of the earth. Blonde girl then orders Katana Man to retrieve Chainsaw Man's heart, but Himeno's ghost hand, about to disappear, uses the last bit of its strength to hover over and pull on Chainsaw Man's chest, reviving him instantly, and these freaky looking dudes get ready to go at it. Whoa, this is about the biggest shit show since the ending of King's Game. However, though, there are a few things that don't make sense and reveals how, again, unprofessional this team really is, including the leader Makima. She's not that great. We've seen that she has great interest in Denji only, and it makes no sense why no one on her team bothered to do a background check on the guy that she's so obsessed with. He's a poor kid doing jobs for gangs, and he just murdered a bunch of Yakuza members, including a Yakuza boss, or at least he might as well have, since they were all dead and he was left holding the smoking gun, or in this case, chainsaw. And this fact alone should have put Makima and her team on alert. Being involved in Yakuza business means that it's obvious that someone was going to try to kill Denji sooner or later, and that should have spelled trouble for anyone that would have been in close proximity to him. All they had to do was a simple background check on Denji, and that would have let him know that his affiliations were criminal, and he had a lot of baggage, and if they still wanted to bring him on, great. But at the very least, it would have made this team more aware of any potential threats from Denji's past that were eventually going to catch up with him. And getting over to Himeno, her death, while it seems epic as hell, it just wasn't necessary or even practical. It's noted that Denji was brought back to life just now by having his chest cord getting pulled on by Himeno before she died. But it doesn't make sense why she didn't do that before she gave up her life for no reason. She was already in close proximity to Denji at the time and could have revived him like this way earlier. And especially when you consider that earlier against the Eternity Devil, she did the same thing to him when he died, which means she already knew about this move. It means as a veteran devil hunter, she failed her training and panicked and sacrificed herself for no real reason. Oh, that's right, love. That's not good enough. Springing back up with life, Chainsaw Man pounces on Katana Man, and the two engage in a brutal combat, slicing and dicing each other, ending up on the streets. Blonde-haired girl calls for backup, and some of her minions try to shoot Chainsaw Man, and he takes a bad guy hostage. But Katana Man then uses his supercharged move a final time, and cuts Denji in half, killing him again. And now with the battle finally seemingly over, he transforms back into his human form. Sideburns Guy. Original name, I know. Meanwhile, back in Makima's train, the bad guys find out that the train will be arriving in Kyoto shortly, and they get ready with their escape plans once they reach it. But they have no idea they will never leave this train alive. And then suddenly Makima appears behind them and looks completely unharmed, and she smiles, and the bad guys scream. Minutes later, at Kyoto Station, a few Devil Hunter advisors wait for Makima's arrival, but get word that the rest of the Devil Hunter division has been ambushed. Right as Makima's train finally arrives, and they're nervous, and she steps out. These two are shocked, but she tells them to not worry because she's fine. She tells them that the bad guys were most likely after Denji, and she prepares her plan to save him, and she orders her advisors to gather 30 convicts serving life sentences or more, and to gather them at a shrine on a nearby mountain. They're super confused, but she tells them that she'll deal with the Denji situation from here. Reaching the shrine, Makima changes into some clean clothes just as the prisoners arrive, blindfolding everyone, doing this to ensure that no one knows what devils she has contracts with. And what does she do, my good weebs? She starts sacrificing convicts one by one, using her unknown devil contracts to activate even more bloodshed. Back in Kyoto, Sideburns Guy and Blonde Girl try to kidnap Denji in this truck, but suddenly one of their minions start feeling a little weird. And he says he feels strange and realizes something is wrong, before then he gets crushed by an unknown force. And Blonde Girl realizes that Makima must be behind this, and radios her team to check if she's really dead. And one by one, all of her minions die off. Others try to run away, but explode. And then Blonde Girl notices one of Denji's teammates up ahead. Hair Clip Girl, and she's alive and pissed off. Blonde Hair Girl calls on her Snake Devil, but Hair Clip Girl is too quick and dodges its attack and charges at them. She cuts off Sideburn Guy's hand and shields herself with Denji's corpse from the Blonde Girl's attack. Now out of devil energy, Sideburns Guy retreats into a van while Blonde Girl drives them off to escape, without Denji or his heart. And Hair Clip Girl cries over the loss of her teammates. Later, Devil Hunter advisors meet up with Makima back in Tokyo, and they report that almost all of the members have been killed. Makima thinks that this is the work of the Gun Devil, and her reasoning being is that due to Japan's strict gun laws, it's very likely the Gun Devil probably supplied all these bad guys with the weapons. This advisor tells Makima that the rest of the devil hunting divisions have now joined together into one unit, and they tell Makima that she'll be running the show, fearing for his life. This scaredy cat gives off classic Glasses Guy energy and tells Makima that he wants to quit the team. A few days later, Aki wakes up in the hospital all heartbroken over Himeno's death, and Denji tells him that most of their members are dead or have ended up quitting because this job is getting too dangerous, and he leaves with power, right as Aki takes out his cursed devil sword and receives some bad news from this contracted devil. Because he wasted his devil power on Katana Man earlier, his remaining lifespan on Earth has now been reduced to 2 years. Tries to light a match, but remembers his old partner and breaks down in sadness and in pain. And Denji overhears Aki outside, but wonders why he himself is not crying, and he realizes that even though they were friends, he's not really even that sad about Himeno's death, and his emotions have started to disappear more and more since he got turned into a devil hybrid. And he wonders what will happen if he soon becomes more devil than human. But he quickly forgets about all of those serious thoughts and goes on with his happy merry day. Back in Aki's room, the same devil hunter advisors from earlier show up. They consult Aki and tell him that since he abused one of his devils from earlier that he had a contract with, Kon, it likely won't ever let him use its powers again. They also say that the cursed devil located in his sword, this devil will only let him use its powers a few more times before his contract with it expires as well. They advise him that he needs to make some new contracts with some more devils, or else he won't survive the incoming battles against the gun devil. And they warn him that he's about to go through hell if he stays on this job. And they tell him that he can retire if he wants to. Wanting to avenge his ex-partner though, and his family, which died by the gun devil, he decides to stay on the job, and the advisors prepare to hook him up with some really sweet, terrifying devil contracts, and they leave. Right as this lady enters, and Aki is shocked. It's Himeno's sister, and she hands him letters sent to her by Himeno over the years detailing her and Aki's adventures together, and he finds out that she was in love with him, and that she wanted to eventually quit the devil hunting life for good, making him feel even more sad and fueling him with some spicy character motivation. Moving on. Later, Denji and Power meet up with Makima in this creepy cemetery, and she tells them her new crazy plan. Due to the recent attacks, it's clear by now that the bad guys are after Denji, which means that he needs to learn how to better defend himself even more. And she tells them that this blonde-haired guy will now put them through training to turn them into even more lethal devil hunters. He's kind of creepy and asks how these two felt when their teammates died, but Denji and Power say they didn't really care about it too much, they were fine. And blonde guy then smiles and says that they'll make perfect devil hunters someday if they survive his training. And he announces that their training will start now and goes to hug them in a really weird way and mentions that he's a devil hunter that loves his job, women, and alcohol. And suddenly he squeezes them a little too hard and crushes their spine and tells them that their strength lies in the fact that they can regenerate instantly with blood, but if they go against the gun devil, they'll need to become much stronger. And he offers them his most insane challenge yet and gives them permission to try and kill him. Denji and Power think he's crazy, but blonde guy begins to approach them, and these two quickly try to defend themselves and attack, but this badass boss man swiftly kills them again in one smooth go. And blonde guy insults their skills really repeatedly and tells them that he'll keep trying to kill them every day until they become better killers themselves. A little while later on the way back home, a super tired Denji and Power think about running away from their job since it's no fun anymore. But Power out of nowhere thinks she has an idea and tells Denji that blonde guy is a certified drunk and that alcohol has likely rotted his brain, and they should use this fact to their advantage. Instead of trying to fight head on, they should use their smarts instead of strength to win against him when they fight him tomorrow, and they begin scheming. The next day, blonde guy shows up at their apartment, and the bloodshed begins again. Trying to open Denji's front door, Power suddenly throws a spear right through it, forcing him to quickly dodge it and switching to plan B. She desperately shoots her blood-filled bottles above him to spear him down through the floor and doesn't realize his sick, evasive moves. Denji quickly surprises him from behind, but gets properly knocked in the face. Now both down bad, blonde guy critiques their performance. He says that, Power, you used up too much of your blood and became anemic and weak, and Denji, my good man, you failed to predict my attack. And then he calls it a day and leaves. So, then Denji gets up and calls out to check on Power, but then suddenly gets stabbed in the hand. Confused, he looks up and sees blonde guy who tells him that they should never trust the words of a hunter. Okay, this is crazy. And while these two did try to use their tiny brains to combat this devil hunting serial killer, their efforts were really wasted. If I was Denji, the first thing that I would have done would have been to look into who this guy really was and not show up and meet him in person prior, because he clearly gave us a long enough of a head start to prepare. This guy is the strongest member of the devil hunters, and his calm attitude means that he knows that anyone that fights him head on is probably going to die, and him being the best means it's clear that this guy fighting fair and square is out of the question, because we're devils after all. It means that we need to fight him dirty. This is why I would have tried to use the combination of the element of surprise and 10 milliliters of pure ethanol. Methanol, my good weebs, is a colorless liquid that occurs naturally at a low level in most alcoholic beverages. However, though, industrial methylated spirits used for things like cleaning or a thinning solvent. But this thing is extremely toxic, and when consumed even a little, 10 milliliters can destroy the optic nerve and can very quickly cause blindness. And by the way, this can be bought in most places. Meanwhile, Aki meets with his devil hunting advisors, and they go down to this secret basement, and they tell him that this is where their organization keeps all the devils that they capture on the job, and this is where devil hunting members can make different deals with them. And soon Aki, with his only 2 years left of life, will be able to soon face off against the gun devil and his minions. He just needs to be as strong as possible to do it. But they warn him, and saying that the stronger the devil that he makes the deal with, the more terrifying his contract to receive that power will be. And they finally reach the basement and tell him that the organization wants him to make a deal with one of their top devils, the Future Devil, one of the most powerful devils in existence. But to obtain a contract from it, Aki will need to be prepared to suffer. They reveal that 2 other members currently have contracts with this devil, and that one sacrificed half their lifespan to use its powers, and the other gave up all of their senses. But this guy tells him that if the devil likes him, he might make his contract less terrifying. Opening this steel cage door, Aki heads inside and steps into the darkness and watches something watch him back. Aki sees the future devil emerge from the shadows, but it turns out to be a total dancing weirdo. It tells him that the details of Aki getting a contract with him will depend on what future he has. He tells Aki to plop his face inside of it while it scans his future, and so he takes a quick sec to look ahead at Aki's fate, and that's when it suddenly laughs like a devil. It tells Aki that it will allow him to use its powers if it can live inside of his eye, and it tells Aki that he will die in the most painful way possible in the future, and because of this, it wants to get a front row view of his death when it happens. But Aki doesn't care about the future and accepts the future devil's contract, telling him that he'll do whatever it takes to kill as many devils as he can within that time. Meanwhile, Blonde Guy keeps training Denji and Power in the only way that he knows how, which is to try to straight up kill them every single time, and mentions though that they've gotten better, but reveals to them that they'll soon face real terrifying combat tomorrow, and he lays out their upcoming mission and their targets. Katana Man and Blonde Girl, capture or kill, but if they fail, their devil hunting division will be finished, and they will likely be put down like dogs by Blonde Guy, and he'll make it hurt, he says. Later that night, Blonde Guy has dinner with Makima, and she compliments his training with Denji and Power, but he says that each time one of his trainees dies, he drinks a little more, and mentions that he's worried about their upcoming battle tomorrow. He then asks Makima about the ambush and the recent deaths of most of the devil hunters, telling her that the bosses who run the government aren't stupid, and he asks Makima if she knew about the assassinations beforehand, and Blonde Guy states that as long as she is on the side of humans, he doesn't care what terrifying things she does. But she tells him that all she wants to do is to save people from devils. Blonde Guy calls her a big fat liar, and she lets out a faint smile. The next day, Sideburns Guy and Blonde Girl hide out in this building and get ready for battle. This minion tells them that they've moved the big boss to another hideout, but Blonde Girl says as long as Makima is alive, there will be nowhere to hide in Japan. Sideburns Guy here is Granddad's little boy, and tells everyone that his old man would never run from trouble, and he forces everybody to buckle up for the most bloody battle they are all about to join in. He reveals to them that they have a secret weapon hidden underneath this building. A bunch of zombies. Ooh, how original. And this is how they'll take out Denji's crew. Meanwhile, Makima shows up at this house in the forest, home to Sideburns Guy's boss, and she finds out from him that they did not order the recent hit on all the devil hunters in Japan, but that Blonde Girl was the one behind this. An ex-member, she'd been tricking young gang members into making contracts with the Gun Devil in exchange for 20,000 yen, and they'd all get access to the Gun Devil's unlimited weapons. But Makima remains emotionless and asks this Yakuza boss to write down all the names of all the members who have contracts with the Gun Devil. But the boss man laughs and tells her that giving all the names will create a war within Japan among the crime syndicates. And if this happens, this will make Japan weak, and this will result in foreign mafia taking over Japan. Makima then gives him a package containing the eyeballs of everyone's family members in this room, and this shocks everyone. And this Yakuza tries to attack Makima, but then has a nosebleed and he dies right there. She then gets up and tells the Yakuza boss that the most necessary evils in this world are always run by the state. Meanwhile, back in Tokyo, Denji's team has finally surrounded the building where the bad guys are, and the good guys prepare for bloodshed. Blonde guy tells Aki and the team that there is no plan. They're just gonna go in there and assault this building. Okay, so these people are about to go storm this terrifying building in the same manner as Bruce Willis did in Die Hard 1. Awesome, but stupid. Doing the thing without a plan and going balls to the wall. And while it may look badass, this is really dumb. If this mission was so important and for the good of the city, it makes no sense to send in just a few devil hunters and ones that you've been training. Why not send the whole dang army? In any case, if I was them, I would not only storm the entrance of the building, but I would also storm from the rooftop as well, as both sides enter. Doing this would have forced the enemy to be cornered on both sides and surprised them by attacking the enemy from above and below, which would have forced them to not rely on any pre-existing defenses and basically panic. Invading the building, this shark fiend devil swims through this basement and begins attacking all of these zombies, and he teams up with a few others just like him, the violence fiend. This devil likes humans. Along with this angel devil, Aki bumps into her and hands her a handkerchief. This impresses her, and she asks if Aki isn't afraid of having his lifespan absorbed from her, and he says he doesn't care. And they kill this one bad guy, and he tells Denji and Power here to split up and go floor by floor to clear the building. Aki sprints through these floors, but begins to watch every bad guy die by nosebleeds. It's strange, and he can't explain what's going on. He then reaches this staircase, but that's when he comes across Blonde Girl. She then makes her snake devil appear, and it spits out Himeno's devil, now under Blonde Hair Girl's control. But then also, her nose suddenly starts bleeding, but she doesn't think much of it, and she makes this devil attack Aki, but he quickly uses the future devil's powers to see a few seconds into the future, allowing him to dodge all of these attacks, but not for long. He finally gets caught and injured and is about to be killed, and this ghost gets ready to kill Denji and chokes him. He then passes out and pictures him and Himeno and begins to have no fear of death or this ghost. Suddenly though, this causes this devil to drop him, and it offers him something in its hand. Aki picks up the cigarette and realizes that it belonged to Himeno, and that's when he smiles and picks up his sword, climbing over this devil, and Blonde Girl looks in shock. Now without fear, he kills this devil and gets ready to arrest Blonde Girl. She tries to call her snake devil again, but gets held up at knife point by Hair Clip Girl. Meanwhile, Denji and Power take the lift up and get ready for the incoming bloodshed. Power starts chomping on a snack, and Denji is really disgusted. The two then get into their 100th fight as this lift door opens up and they see a zombie horde. Heart pumping, Denji tells Power to keep her voice down, but suddenly Power yells at the top of her lungs, instigating trouble and shocking Denji. She says that they can take them on and charges head on like an idiot, and Denji just leaves her to die. Slicing and dicing these flesh-eating bastards, she cuts this giant zombie head off, and it spurts out delicious blood. Back in the lift, Denji keeps going up and arrives on the 13th floor, and he gets ready to transform into Chainsawman, but that's when he comes across Sideburns Guy, and he offers for them to talk. He says that they're willing to surrender if Denji apologizes for killing his Yakuza granddad. Denji gets really annoyed and says that he only killed him because he was already a zombie. Sideburns Guy thinks that Denji is lying and starts to get really mad. He wants to know if Denji felt guilty for killing them, but Denji tells them nope. And Sideburns Guy then reveals to Denji that Blonde Hair Girl replaced his heart with the Katana Devil's heart, but even he thinks that Denji has become too cold. He offers Denji to let him give Denji a quick death, and Denji thinks about it for a quick sec and says no thank you, and both flip on their switch and suddenly transform into bloodthirsty killers. Blasting out of this building, the two clash blades and hot steel as they come crashing down, and Denji dodges a bunch of attacks but is forcibly pushed back and gets slammed down further into this passing train. Sideburns Guy aka Katana Man catches up with him and commends him on his new fighting skills, but they won't be enough. It asks Denji what he's really fighting for, and he says that he likes his life and says that he has food at home and a pretty girl that will soon be his girlfriend. Katana Man calls him an idiot and tells him that he can't beat him. They charge at each other, but Denji gets knocked back and begins to realize that he's running out of steam. Katana Man super jumps into the air and comes crashing down into Denji, and they reach the passenger floor. Everyone begins to run as the train starts coming to an emergency stop. Denji tries to catch his breath, but that's when he notices Katana Man crouched down, and Denji knows what that means. He tries to block it, but gets one of his arms ripped clean off, and Katana Man spams his attack buttons to get Denji a second time. Now with no arms, Katana Man demands that Denji apologize for killing his granddad before before he dies. But Denji refuses. Furious, Katana Man prepares his signature move for a final time, but it's already too late. The head of Denji's chainsaw finally cracks. Katana Man tells Denji that it's over and that he can't fight anymore, but neither can he. Katana Man's body splits apart as his organs and guts paint the window in red-hot, thick blood. And the stench of his corpse begins to fill the train with sweet victory. Okay, while that was a sweet fighting sequence, I loved it, Denji's victory here was really not that impressive, because despite all of the cool moves, he kept reusing a special attack again and again and again, to the point where his moves became painfully obvious. But another thing that doesn't make sense was how Denji and his team was not informed of Katana Man's biggest weakness, and this was the fact that if we noticed from earlier, once he changed back into a human, he was unable to transform back into his devil, because if he could, then he would have when he faced against Hair Clip Girl, since there was no reason for him in that moment to be human. If Hair Clip Girl was paying attention and wasn't such a crybaby, she could have noticed this major flaw and could have alerted Denji's team. Later, Sideburns Guy wakes up and realizes that he's been chained up by Denji. He tells this bad guy that because of what he did to his friends, Denji will now kick him in the nuts in honor of his fallen comrades. But that's when Aki shows up and looks down on Denji's silliness. But Denji tells Aki to let loose, man, for once in your life. Think of Himeno. So, convinced now, Aki joins in on the fun and they ready their kicking while Sideburns Guy readies his onegiris. Meanwhile, Makima goes to report to her big boss and informs him of today's events. She tells him that the assassinations were committed by a blonde girl who was an ex-devil hunter herself and she wanted Denji's heart. And the big boss asks why she wanted Denji's heart specifically. But she tells him that before they could find out that information, she mysteriously died from her own contract devil. And she tells him how they also obtained 1.4 kilos of the gun devil's flesh from inside the bad guy's building. And now the flesh has started to point them to the location of the gun devil. But what do you guys think about the video? Let us know what you like about it and what you didn't like about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a thumbs up down below. And as always, check out our How to Beat playlist.